Welcome back to NMP Talk Show, the show that keeps you informed and engaged with topics about your mental health, wellness. And we are so excited that you're joining us this evening. And we're not alone. Today, we continuing on the topic that we had for 2 episodes. And it's a very interesting topic that we wanted to revisit again, the art of decision making. So we want to see how we can navigate life's crossroads. And to help me with this topic, we have our guest, Mr. Vee-yen Kay. Mr. V, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So, Mr. V, when he was on our 2 episodes that we had previously, highlighted on the steps that we need to take when we're making decisions. Decisions are made on a daily basis, and we have to live with what we have decided. So for us not to, be stressed about what we're deciding, we need to know how to decide, and he's the man for that, who's been helping us on how to make proper decisions. Mr. V, can we catch up on what we talked about the 2 episodes that we had?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much for having us here. Now, I think what is important here is for me to actually just go through the previous steps that we've actually gone for the benefit of those people who were not around.
Yeah.
First of all, we all get into problems. We all got life is about solving problems. That's what life is all about. So
Mm.
we have to have a skill of managing those problems going forward. Now, what actually then happens is if you bump into a problem, there's something else which I did not expand on in the last episodes. You see, whenever we bump into a problem, uh, we bump into a secondary problem. Now, I didn't mention this the last time. I just glossed over it. What normally happens is that if you bump into a problem, almost always it's a secondary problem. Why do I call it a secondary problem? It's because it actually happens in the second place. In the first place will be a primary problem. What do I mean by that? A secondary problem is a problem that happens because it's being caused by a problem which is pre-existing, which is there already. I'll give you a simple example. If you contract a flu, it's a problem, but it's a secondary problem. The reason is it has been given rise to by the weak immune system. So the real problem which you have is the weak immune system. And that is why you have this secondary one. If you run out of money, you will actually then know that no, it's a problem that I've run out of money. But the real problem is the way how you actually handle money is the real
Mm.
problem. That's the primary one. It's not the fact that you are now broke, it's now a secondary problem. But while you're trying to resolve your secondary problem, try to also attend to the primary problem. Okay, so first of all, we have to define what our problem is, right?
Okay.
This, we define our problem. But the important thing in defining a problem properly, you must make sure that you don't define a problem in a way which is disempowering. I'll give you a good example. If you say, if I were to pour water in a glass halfway, if you say it's half full, it means you have a positive mindset. If you say it's half empty, you have got, in fact, technically, both are the same. But the problem is the way how you define a problem. Say, suppose you have been fired from work and you're now looking for a job. If you define your problem to say, I've been fired, it's disempowering because it actually takes you back to that situation where you were when it
Mm.
actually happened. But if you would say, I'm looking for a way to earn a living, that is much more forward looking. So you have to
The,
define Sorry.
No, I was saying, so it's the outlook that's important.
Your mindset is important when you
Yeah.
define your problem, because it then defines how you understand the problem and how you view it. What is your perception towards the problem?
Mm,
If you
mm,
say, I've been fired, then you can forget it. It means that anger, resentment, and all those things come up. Okay, that's defining your problem. Define a problem in a forward looking way. The next thing that you must do is you must actually now make an assessment. Then you must actually now, before you get to the assessment, you must actually now understand the facts about the problem. So while we are talking about, I'll just keep to this example of having been fired at work. Now, the problem that you really have is not really getting fired, is the fact that you don't actually have a means to support your family. That is the problem.
mm.
Now, say, suppose if you turn around and say, okay, what are the facts about my problem? One, how much savings have I got? Two, what are my bills? Three, what are my obligations towards the school, the mortgage, the car, and all those kind of things. You have to put those on the table. Those are the facts about your problem, which you have to resolve. The next thing is
Okay.
you must actually now go for an assessment. When I say the assessment, the thing is, you have to assess your state of mind, your frame of mind. Say, suppose if really you are angry, or you are resentful, or those feelings, they tend to color your decision making. You have to ensure that the amount of feelings and emotions that you feel at that particular point in time is such that it's not so high that it will end up coloring your decision making capabilities. The next one is you must actually then look at your own self-efficacy. What does it mean? Your self-efficacy is to determine how qualified you are to tackle the problem. When I say the qualification to tackle a problem, now you realize what the problem is. Now, to assess how you can how you can tackle the problem, there are a few things that you have to look at. First of all, what is your skill? The next one is, what is your knowledge? The second one is, the third one is, what is your attributes? The other one is, what are the tools? The other one is, what are your techniques? And the other one is, what are your resources? Now, say, suppose you're going to be looking for another job. Your skill is, if you're a computer programmer, you'll actually say, I'm a computer programmer. Are you good? Are you medium? Are you lousy? You have to be truthful with yourself. The next one is,
Mm.
what is your knowledge? Your knowledge in terms of how do you actually understand the computer, whatever is required in your field. You have to understand it properly. The attributes are your own characteristics as a person. Because if we're going to stay with this theme of having been fired, the problem is, if you were very argumentative with your boss, it means there is something in your characteristic which you have to look at, which is very important. Because if you
Mm.
continue being argumentative, even in the next job, you'll continue being argumentative and you'll still be fired anyway.
Mm.
you
Mm.
know, so it's not helpful. So you have to understand your own characteristic as a person, as a human being, because all of us, we have our weaknesses, we have our flaws, we have our, we've got dark sides to ourselves. And it's important for you to actually understand what your dark side is, much as you may not like it, but it's with you and is there to stay, by the way. The next one
So,
is,
Mr. V,
is
where does this fall under? Does it fall under defining the problem, or?
No, it falls under assessment because what you're actually doing is you're actually now making your self-assessment. You're
Mm,
assessing yourself.
okay.
You're actually assessing yourself. In fact, there are three things in self-assessment. First of all,
Mm,
you assess your frame of mind, the way how your feelings and emotions. The second
mm.
one is your efficacy, your skill, your knowledge, your characteristics, and all those kind of things. But there's another one, which is very important, your teachability index. What is a teachability index? A teachability index is made up of two things. It's made up of what is it? It's made out of your willingness to learn and your
Learn.
willingness to change. Those are the two things. And if you
So
multiply both,
basically, are you moldable like a
yes,
clay?
are you
Okay.
moldable? Because if you are
Yeah.
not, then maybe this world is not really for you. But then you have to be honest with yourself to actually say, what is my willingness to learn? What is my willingness to change? Because certain things can only accommodate you if you are in your changed form, not in your current form. Unfortunately, that's how the world works.
Yeah. True.
The last time I checked, it
I
worked that way. The chances are that maybe it might have changed by now.
I don't think it changed yet.
So the next point is the NHT, which is the human nature, because you remember there was a time when I spoke about the YFM, that everybody listens to YFM, which is what's
Yeah.
in it for me. So when we are trying to solve a problem, there are times when we even do things which are immoral or even unethical or even are illegal or even dangerous just because we would like to survive, because of this survival instinct which is within us. So we will take shortcuts. This is why you see people doing all sorts of things because they want to survive. And because of this survival instinct, it's a natural trait within us. And that's one thing we have to accept. But then you must actually then uh, look out for that kind of trait. The next
Mm,
one is, what are your belief systems regarding that problem? If I'm talking about a belief system, I'm talking about somebody who turns around and says, "Oh, I can't get a job because we're just coming out of COVID. Oh no, the world is a rubbish place," or whatever you say. What is your belief when it actually comes to the problem at hand? I'm a woman. I can't be employed in certain places. I am this and that. What is your belief? You must be able to write it down. What is your belief system regarding this particular problem? The next one is, what biases have you got? Okay, let's accept everybody has got biases. And our biases, we've got all sorts of biases. We've got our cognitive biases or confirmation bias, we've got appearance bias. What are those biases that you've got regarding this problem? We've got many biases all over the place, but we should actually confine our bias, our prejudice, our assumptions, and our stereotypes relating to this kind of problem that we're sitting with. What are those? The next one is, what is our pattern? Because normally we've got pattern thinking ways. We've actually got a pattern in which we do things. There's a certain pattern. Everybody has got a certain pattern in the way how they approach problems. So you better ask yourself the question, what has been the pattern, what I've been using all along? Because you see, when you were in this kind of situation and you're now looking for a job, what then happens is, what is the pattern that you've actually been using? Because there are certain patterns that we forever use and we get stuck in them. I'll give you a simple example about a pattern. A pattern is you can turn around and say, oh, I'd like to look for a job only in the banking industry. And this is where you have been forwarding your applications and your CVs. Then the question is, if you're going to be omitting certain sectors, what is it? The only thing that I'm actually trying to raise here is that you should be aware of the way how you think. Just the awareness. Just be aware. This is the way I think, and this is the way how I approach problems. Because if you want to have total power over anything, you must first of all have power over yourself. But then to have that power, you must actually then understand how to go about it, to get to know yourself. Because look, we are all strangers to ourselves. More often than not, we don't even know who we are. We will pretend that we know ourselves, but truth is we don't. Why don't we know ourselves? It's because we are afraid of who we are. Because we suspect what we're going to be picking up, so we don't want to go there. I would rather walk around with a stiff neck looking the other side. I don't actually want to confront that other dark side of who I am.
The monster in me.
The monster in me. That is why if you want to really have no friends in the world, you must criticize a person. People don't want, it's not because they don't want to be criticized, it's because they don't actually want to face that other side of themselves, which is a problem. So that is unfortunately who we are. But obviously, we got to live with ourselves. So what I'm basically advocating here, we must be able to look ourselves in the mirror and realize ourselves for who we really are. In our own private space, even then we are so afraid, we are so fearful of who we are. That is also a problem. That is also a problem. We are fearful of who we are. So anyway, let's actually move on. After having realized the kind of pattern that we use in terms of, then we can actually then go to today's topic, which is optimism. Optimism is about creating ideas, coming up with ideas of how best I can resolve this problem. But then if you come to this point is important in the sense that you write your problem up there, but then after having defined your problem, say suppose you say, I would like to look for a new way of earning a living. You take a foolscap paper and you write. You say, I'm now brainstorming ideas. Then in that case, what you must then do is you must shut off your PFC. The PFC is actually your prefrontal cortex, that is your brain. You have to shut it off. The reason why a brain has got to be shut off is because our brain is very strange. Besides having an agenda of its own, it has also got this, it strives to rule over you and to tell you what works and what does not work. A simple example, did I tell you a story about how, okay, maybe I could tell you the story now. There was a time when in the United States, there was a place where they had a lot of crime. So then the neighbors got together and they actually said, guys, look, what can we do? This crime it's actually becoming a problem. So everybody would actually get up. There was a convener. Everybody would stand up and they raise their hand. They would say, look, we would like to would like to, yeah, what about if we get dogs? Someone said, let's actually get a security company. Somebody said, look, let's actually get cameras. Somebody actually says, let's go, all those kind of things. Then one guy said, look, how about if everyone were to be a policeman? So they looked at him. They actually said, look, you're silly. What do you mean everybody being a policeman? I mean, we've got jobs to go to. That's what one comment which actually came from one guy. But then
Mm.
the convener actually then said, whoa, guys, wait. I just want to follow. He was curious. He wanted to find out exactly why this particular guy said it. And after having been panel beating this idea, he actually then took it to its logical conclusion. And guess what actually came out of there? What we now currently call the neighborhood watch or the community policing forum. That's how it was born. Because of an idea which somebody thought was stupid. So if you're now going to sit here and you say, I'm now at this stage where I am going to come up with creativity. What you have to do is you sit down, you forget about your brain, and you start to write as quickly as possible ideas, which are, some of them they are silly, some of them they are totally bizarre, some of them they are ridiculous. You just continue writing, write about 20 ideas without even thinking about them. Whatever comes to your mind, you just put it down. After the 20 ideas, then you say, okay, now let me just have a look at these ideas. That is when you can actually then take your brain back. But while we are talking about these ideas still, there's something which is important in these ideas. Some ideas will not fly because of a constraint. What is a constraint? Say, suppose you have been fired from work, and you say to your wife, "Look, um, what about if we can convert our house into a lodge and get people to actually come here and you know and your wife say, hey, are
All
you
right.
mad? Our house is too small, or we don't have the money to convert the house into a lodge. So when you say we don't have the money to convert our house into a lodge, that in itself is a constraint. Then ask the question, how can I, because the idea itself, you like the idea, but it's just too expensive. So expense or the cost is the constraint. Then you then ask a separate question to say, how can I find a way? How can I make it cheaper so that we can go ahead and convert this house into a lodge? So you can even come up with bizarre ideas, but those ideas, as long as they've got a constraint, don't throw them away. Take the constraint and look at it and say, how best can I work on this constraint? Say, suppose you want to this lodge thing. I want to convert my house into a lodge. Okay, the next thing you might say, you know what? I can't go to the bank. I don't have a good credit record. Hey, what about if I could go to a businessman and say to him, listen, let's actually go 50-50. You pay, this is my house, you pay this, we can convert it, and for the next 6 months, you will actually, you actually give him something that he can work with. You use his money.
Mm.
Yeah. So what I'm basically saying is you have to get into a place where you actually become what we would like to call a contrarian. A contrarian is somebody who actually comes up with an idea which people think is stupid or bizarre or strange or ridiculous.
That's contrary.
Exactly. That's why they call those people contrarians.
Yeah.
So if you come up with a contrarian idea, that's where you can actually sit up and say, you write all these ideas and you say, okay, you classify them. Is this idea got a constraint? Is this idea going to be workable and all those kind of things? So you actually have to write all these ideas and you put them down. The other thing is you must also be thinking about frameworks. What is a framework? A framework is now that you're out of a job, you want to go and look for another job. but you're actually using the same framework. Because the framework is, oh, the only way I can sustain my family or I can provide my family is when I have a job. That's one framework. But there are other
Mm.
people who don't have jobs, who are still providing for their families. What is it that they are doing? So it actually means that your framework could be that of being an employee. What about of that of being a lodge owner? You now own a lodge. That's also
Mm.
another framework you should be looking at. So I'm saying you should actually interrogate the rest of the frameworks that you have actually got, or the frameworks which could be available so that you can actually start earning a living. You don't have to earn a living as an employee.
That's a very different way of looking at things, and it really makes us think on how we approach our life and decision making. So, for those that has just joined us from Telegram and other platforms, we streaming on Telegram, obviously, and also on YouTube. We welcome your comments. If you have any comments or questions, please raise your hand, and we'll do. We'll read them out to our guests here. We're talking about the art of decision making, navigating life's crossroads, and we've seen 6 steps that we have to take in order for us to have the proper decision making process. And now we're delving on being optimistic. And Mr. V just explained optimism in a different way that I have ever thought for the rest of my life. You have dissected it, and yeah, I'm just having a different outlook on it. But thank you for that. So
Oh,
now, what
really?
else can we? Yeah, what else can we do, Mr. V?
You see, what we can do here is that we first of all have to after having harvested the rest of our ideas, we put them aside. Then we say, okay, now these ideas have now got to be interrogated. After having generated all these ideas, you sit back. This step where what I'm talking about is generating ideas. Then we go to the next step. The next step is we actually have to run them through a filter. All these ideas, we're going to run them through a filter. Filter number one is the alignment. You got to ask yourself the question to say, is this thing aligned with my goals? Say, suppose you are somebody who has high moral values, and one of the ideas that came to your mind is robbing a bank. Then you ask yourself, is this align? Does this align with the values or with the values I've got? So if any of your ideas violates your values, get rid of that. Get rid of that idea. Don't
Mm.
pursue it any further. Don't look at it. The next one is the idea that I've got. What are the probabilities or the possibility that it could fly? Well, is it 70% or 80% or 90% and all those kind of things? You must actually be able to look at those ideas and say, what are the possibilities that you will be able to get this idea to work?
Mm.
The next one is you have to look at the idea. What kind of impact will it make in your life? It has to have a certain kind of impact. If the impact is too low, you might say, oh, look, this idea, I'm just going to discard it. If the probability of that idea happening is too low, you can get rid of it. And those
Here's
are
the
all
question for
these.
on that point. You saying that what if it impacts my life? Should it just be your life or also the life of people around you?
It is,
Or
when I
we
say
looking?
your life, I'm talking about
Yeah.
you and all the other people around you.
Okay.
because it's important that you take into account other people. So what you
Yeah.
then do is, what you then do is, you 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 do that after having put that one together. You say, okay, these are the ideas. Then these are the filters as you go along. What is possible?
Mm,
What is doable? And all those kind of things. And what impact is it
yeah.
going to have? And what are the risks? You must also write what the risks are and all that, until such a time you have filtered everything. Yes.
Yeah. The reason why I'm asking this, when you have gone through an event, a life-changing event, for instance, losing your job, getting fired, or something drastic that had happened to your life, and you find yourself by yourself, no people around you helping or anything else, you start to tend to a mode where you're thinking about yourself and just you only, because you want to recover from that situation. And hence, I was asking the impact. Does it just involve yourself coming from a selfish mode, and then you clearly explained it that it's people around you. So that is why I raised that, so that our audience can also have an understanding that we're not just talking about one person here, which is yourself. Everything else, the decisions that you're making affects others as well.
Yes. There is what I also call one of the filters is called aspect.
Mm,
One of the, because I spoke about the alignment, I spoke about the impact and all that. I now, I mean, the next step it would be aspect. The aspect is what they normally call the pastel. How is this thing going to impact or influence, you know, the some of the spheres, which is the political, the economic, the social, the technical, and when we talk about social, I would love to do certain things, but how is it going to impact the social, I mean, the social surroundings, the social aspect, it's also in there as well, which you have to take into account. If any of the ideas impacts on that and that concerns you, you have to discard it
mm,
until you actually then end up with one idea that you think, no, look, this is the kind of idea I would like to pursue.
So you funnel
Yes, you're
your
using a
idea.
funnel so as to get rid of the rest of the other ideas.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you
Okay.
will have actually then generated ideas of how best you can work around a certain constraint. If you've got a good idea and there is a constraint, pursue the idea and make sure that you look for a way of how you can deal with the constraint. It's important to deal with the constraint.
Okay. That makes sense. So what are we jumping to now?
Okay. So after having done that, we should there
Mm,
be a constraint? Oh, no, no. Okay. There is a constraint. You also look at it. Then from there on, we've generated all that, and what we're actually now doing is after the optimism, we move into pessimism. That is where
mm,
you put on your cap, the pessimism cap, which everybody runs around with. If you go to somebody and say, look, I would like to do this, they'll say, ah, no, you can't do that because of whatever reason. So you have to put a critical, that's where the critical thinking comes in. That's where you actually then look at each and every idea. Say, suppose you say, I'm looking for a job. Well, then you say, as a computer specialist, I will make it. Then the pessimism would say, first of all, uh, you don't have this and that qualification. Second of all, this place is saturated. Third of all, and you put on all the steps to say for that reason, I mean, this is a good idea. However, because of this reason, it won't fly. Because of that reason, it won't fly. Because of that reason, you put on really your pessimism cap to your heart's content, so that you really take that idea through a mill and make sure that that idea really sweats, so that it can actually then survive the critical zone that you'll have put it in. That's the idea.
So that's
So,
pessimism.
yeah, you have to have two caps. First of all, you put on the pessimism, I mean, the optimism cap. Then you put on the pessimism cap, which actually seeks to crush that idea that you came up with. But then, should you crush it to a point that you feel that, no, look, it's possible, I mean, this thing is destined to fail, that's where you take it back to the optimism stage to say, what is it that you can do to generate ideas to actually improve the environment within which this idea can work. You go
So you
back
listen the
again.
program.
So you go to what you then do is, say, suppose you say, no, this thing is actually not going to work because of this, that, and the other. Then you say to yourself, from the pessimism zone, you go back to the optimistic zone to say, okay, what is it that I need to do to ensure that this thing works? Then you start brainstorming ideas again to make sure that this thing actually does become workable.
Right. So we do have a hint from Telegram. Let me unmute them. Sis Jaime, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you this time. You can unmute yourself. We're not getting audio from you. Okay, I don't know what's happening. All right, let's try another hand. Hilda, are you able to hear us? Okay, we seem to have an issue. Okay, while we sort the audio out on Telegram, Mr. V, let's continue for a bit, and I'll sort out the audio quickly for our audience there.
Okay. So what we do is, after having arrived at a certain idea, which you think is actually going to fly, what you then do is, you say, okay, you put on your pessimism cap, and it actually passes the pessimism cap, the pessimism zone. Then what you then do is that you now go to the next step. The next step is called externalization. Okay, what does that mean? Externalization means because you'll be writing all these things, you put it aside. All this work that you have done, it's in your notepad, and you go away. After pessimism, we actually go to optimism. I'm sorry, we actually go to externalization.
Yeah.
Externalization, what does it mean? Externalization means, okay, but before I actually say exactly what externalization is, what normally happens, I don't know if you've actually realized this. We normally give credence to ideas which come from the outside and not to the ones which come from the inside. A good example is, say, suppose you have an idea in your head. You're forever doubting yourself. But what then happens is, if you actually then externalize it, meaning that you will actually hear it from somebody else, that is when you actually give it much more weight. This is what we do. This is just part of human nature. This is why other people, they will approach you with a problem. And when you say exactly what they should be doing, you giving them advice, they're actually going to put so much weight on the advice, which is, although they might have actually thought of it by themselves, but because it's coming from an external source, they give it much more credence than had it actually come through from their own, within themselves. So this is why it's important that you take that piece of that notepad where you recorded everything, and you put it aside for the next 24 or 48 hours. You come back to it and you sit and you actually go through the points that you worked through. What you're going to discover is you will then look at whatever work you put together as an external source. Then you'll be making additions and subtractions and all those kind of things. To actually say, oh no, I didn't realize this. And because while you are thinking, you may not even understand exactly what you're doing. But when you take it as an external source, that's where it will start working better for you. You start understanding it as if you are interrogating an external information coming from an external source, and yet that information is actually yours. So that is the way how you should do it.
Awesome. I think we have our audience back now.
Okay.
Sis Remy, let's hear from you. Sis Remy, let's hear from you. I think we got you back now.
Hello.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
Oh,
That's great. Finally. So you
Yeah,
can hear me now, Neo.
perfectly.
Okay. All right. Let's not waste time. So I just wanted to ask or maybe comment on a part of the decision making is that because he spoke about the fact that with all these ideas, then you also have obstacles that comes across when you're supposed to take a particular decision. For example, if you lose a job and maybe you want to auction whatever you are lodge and start a business, but then you start having all these negative blockages and obstacles. So I wanted to comment and say maybe sometimes we tend to put blocks in what we do. So we see more obstacles instead of seeing opportunities. So when you're confronted with a problem, do you say, what is it that can come out good out of this bad situation? Instead of saying, I'm confronted with this bad situation and it doesn't look like there's a way out. So if, for example, one loses a job and then you have to obviously provide for your family, do you then say, maybe the economy needs a different skill that I don't have? Or because of artificial intelligence that is taking people's jobs, it therefore requires that I must go and learn a different skill that I initially didn't have. So where people now start having multiple skills that you can then go and sell whatever product out there because you decided to learn a new skill that you didn't have. Instead of saying, I'm this kind of a professional, so the only job that I can do is only what I've studied for. But you are not open enough to new ideas, to new ways of doing things, to developing a new skill. And it may be nothing to do with your profession. But at the end of the day, when you look around, you realize that that skill is going to actually generate income for you. So I'm just saying, perhaps sometimes the way we make decisions, we box ourselves. We don't think out of the box. it's all, I have to get a job. If I don't have a job, then it's the end of the world. Do we allow ourselves to think out of the box? And also, is there a point where people go for good feeling decisions rather than right decisions? Because sometimes right decisions are not pleasant, they are not interesting, but they are the right decisions, versus a good feeling decision where it's easy to implement, it's quick, and maybe you're gonna make money quicker, etc., etc. So those will be my comments and question, probably.
Thank you for that, Sis Remy. Mr. V,
Well,
you're the
yes.
professional here.
Yeah, well, she's actually put a lot of things in one pot. The reason why I actually came up with all these steps is actually to separate all these things, because what normally happens is when you get into a problem, you will have feelings and emotions. There is logic, there is ideas, there is pattern thinking, there is biases, there is assumptions, there is prejudices, there is stereotypes, there is, there is so many things. I actually put all these things to it. So the whole idea of why I've written this book is to ensure that I separate these things and put them in a particular sequence, so that you say, I've completed step one, I'm going to step two, I'm going to step three, and so forth. Because what I've realized is when we get into problems, or when we stand in front of a problem, we've got this issue that we don't have a procedure, we don't have a process, we don't have a system, and everything gets hoid in one pot. And that in itself becomes a problem. So what Ausheim is doing is actually what she's spoken about. These are the things which should actually be put in different categories and be dealt with in that particular category. Like right now, I was talking about the self-efficacy. Self-efficacy deals with you yourself as a person. Are you in a state of mind that you can do this? Or do you have the skill, the knowledge, the attribute, the tools, or the techniques? Or do but then you go step by step. So this is why I think it's important for us to actually go each and every step right up to the conclusion.
Wow, thank you for that. Sis Remy, I hope that has been answered from your perspective there. Can we take Hilda? You had your hand raised there.
No,
Sorry, Hilda?
no, I didn't raise the hand. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No worries. All right. So, Mr. V,
Mhm.
you know when we're having fun, time flies. So let's get into the next step there that we need to consider when we're making our decision.
Okay, I've actually spoken about the externalization. Then the externalization, it's when you actually take. Then that's where you actually take your decision, and you sit and you make notes about additions and subtractions and all that. Then the next step is the consultation. Now, the consultation is what I would actually suggest people should do. You should actually have somebody you revere, somebody you respect, somebody you think might actually look at this issue from a different perspective, somebody that you trust. So, in this step, don't go to a loved one and try to get advice from them. It's not going to work, because their objectivity is highly questionable. Don't do it. So what I'm advocating here is that get somebody who I would, in fact, in my literature, I call that person is a friend with benefits. So I don't have to meet that person. He actually stays in Cape Town, or she stays in Cape Town. What we do is I can bounce off ideas to say, look, I've got this issue and this is the way how I'm looking at it. While I'm talking to him, I would be making notes about their inputs regarding my problem, the way how they look at it, and I will make my own notes. But then the other thing that I discovered is while doing this process, while I'm talking to somebody, there's a little voice within me which actually then tells me how I should go about it. And that is what I call the gut feel. That's what I call the intuition. And that
Before we get to
intuition
that,
is very important.
before we get to that intuition, Mr. V, apologize for that. I see Sis Jaime has raised another hand. You can unmute yourself.
No, it was a mistake. I pressed the
Okay.
mute by mistake. Sorry.
All right. No
Yeah.
problem. Yeah. So you say intuition.
Yes. Intuition is that little wisdom which resides within you. And that intuition has got answers to certain things that you may, there is no reasoning to it. There is no brain to it. Nobody can actually say intuition. It's just it's just the feeling that you've got about certain things. So it's important for you.
Are you saying we should listen to our intuition?
I am saying it should not be written off.
Okay.
While going through this process, it's important that we actually, with half an ear, listen to what the intuition is telling us. We should not write it off because it is there for a reason. Now, the problem that we've got is to make a difference between our normal human tendencies, which is our weaknesses, whereby we're actually going to try to cut corners. And the other one is intuition, which they actually call a gut feel. It's very important that we listen to that as well while we are doing this process.
You see, my challenge with that, if I'm allowed to challenge you.
Oh yeah, oh yes.
In regards to intuition, is that if you have not trained yourself or come out of the box, and this is the way you think, it influences your intuition. This is me, talking. I stand to be corrected. So, looking at the steps that you have come up with, and one of the steps you're talking about behavior, you're talking about beliefs, and I think especially beliefs influence intuition. In that, what you believe in, it will always gravitate. Your intuition will always gravitate to what you believe, and in making decision, if you believe that you're not strong, it has an adverse effect on your intuition. It will always, derail you. So, is it wise to have intuition as one of the steps that you need? Because you can train intuition or replace intuition by following particular steps, which have been proven that they work.
Look, you cannot prove anything in life. Nothing has ever been proven. What actually happens is we actually go according to. I'll give you a simple example. We are trying to resolve a certain problem. I would like to go to the Middle East. I'm a computer specialist. I want to go and try my chances there. Then I may actually feel inside to actually say, I don't think the Middle East would be a better idea. I think I should actually I should try West Africa, or I should try Brazil. There is that little voice within us whereby it actually does happen sometimes that if we go against intuition and we get there, and guess what? We actually find out that something does go wrong. Intuition is really part and parcel of human existence and has been ever since we have been on this planet.
So, can we say intuition and conscience is the same thing?
If I'm talking about conscience, I'm talking about alignment. Let's actually go back to our filter. At the filter, I was saying you must actually ask the question, what are my values as a human being? And those values are important for you to follow them. You can't do something against your inner values. And that's where your conscience sits. It sits on the filter.
So basically, if you have trained your conscience according to the right beliefs, then you dictating your intuition.
Conscience and intuition are just two separate things.
Yes.
Intuition intuition is something separate, but your conscience as well. Let's talk about values. We have got two types of values. We've got the values that we get from our parents, and there are certain values that we are born with. You get born with certain values embedded within your genetic makeup, which you can't run away from.
Okay.
So there are
I
some
get
of the
you.
values that you actually get from your parents or from the people who surround you.
True. And those values determine a lot of things, especially your decision making.
Yes, they determine a lot of things, but there are some of these values that you acquire from other. I actually call them in my literature. It's an acquired value, and there is what I call the innate value. Innate just means you are coming into this world; they are already programmed in your genetic makeup. You can't shake them off, irrespective of where you grow up.
Right. Mr. V, thank you so much. And I cannot believe that we have run out of time. I think we must have a 2-hour show. So just to recap, we spoke about uh, optimism. We spoke about pessimism. We spoke about what is that?
We first of all
What
spoke
is
about we first of all spoke about the
hmm,
optimism. Then we spoke about the
yeah,
filter, how to filter these. Then we went
okay, pessimism.
to the pessimism. Then we went to
Yes.
externalization.
Oh yes, yes, yes. I couldn't see my handwriting there. And we have consultation as well that we spoke
Yes,
about.
I mean, after the externalization, we come to consultation, and it's a
Uh-huh.
big no-no. Consulting
Yeah.
people who love you. Don't consult your
Okay.
friends. Don't consult you. Consult somebody who is actually going to give you as it is, not people who are going to
Yeah.
pussyfoot around you. It's not going to help you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then we got into intuition.
Yeah, intuition is actually just part of. It's actually built into what you feel about the whole thing,
Yeah.
because there is that part whereby you're feeling. How do you feel about how you've actually done in this process?
Right. So basically, with our 2 episode, including this one, which is the third episode, we have gone through 10 steps, in fact, 11 steps on how we can make right decisions, the
Yes.
art of decision making. And we're still left with 10 steps. Mr. V, how was it possible that you are able to come up with so many steps? You know, what do you, for a lack of a better word, you have just dissected a simple concept of making a decision. Some things we do and we're not conscious that that's a process that we're doing. But from talking to you, I see decision decision making is not just about waking up and making a decision. It's calculative. You have to calculate a lot of things, factor in a lot of things so that you can have a better decision to live on. And we thank you for that, Mr. V. Unfortunately, we have run out of time and we want to continue to do the show again. So, can we have you over next show?
Yes.
Definitely. We're looking forward to it. We want to thank everyone that has joined on Telegram. We really also appreciated the comments that we gotten from you, those that are connected on Riverside and also on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate your support. We do have the talk shows every Mondays at 6:30. Please spread the word. Let everyone know that we do have these shows. These shows are very helpful. They help us with our mental wellness. We're talking about making a decision. A decision affects your mental wellness. If you do a wrong decision or take a wrong decision, it affects your wellness, and which we want to correct. And thank you for the professionals that that come to our show, the likes of Mr. Vee-yen Kay. We also had a social worker there, Sis, Sis Jaime. We also had Sis Kathy as well. And Helda, thank you so much for the support that you have given. So until we have our next show and see you then, my name is Neo Morapedi, the host of NMP Talk Show.
So